Hey guys, this is Patrick from STH. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most fundamental changes that is happening in server architecture just over the next couple of years. And this transition is going to happen almost at lightning speed, well, at least for a really slow industry like the server industry. Specifically, you may be well aware of a form factor like this. This is a pretty standard M.2 2280 80mm drive, or this, which is a 15mm U.2, U.3, 2.5-inch form factor type drive. And these two drives are pretty much how you would get an SSD today. And just to head off the comments, yes, there are PCIe add-in cards, but these things are really hard to service relative to their counterparts, so they're a little bit less popular. Actually, a lot less popular. Let's just call it what it is. Now, SSDs are clearly here to stay in the data center. There's absolutely no question that they are, but the M.2 form factor, for example, doesn't really work too well in the data center, and so it's going to be replaced by the E1 or E1S form factor, which we just happen to have a couple of these right here. And for higher power and higher capacity, we tend to have the higher performance drives in a 2.5-inch form factor that's been around for generations. And this 2.5-inch form factor, though, is going away, and what we're going to have instead is the E3 form factor, which may look a little bit similar, but it's actually quite different, and very importantly so. So in this video, and we are going to have links in the description to all of the different parts, so if you want to skip ahead, you can totally go do that, or if you want to skip back and rewatch a section, you can do that as well. But the idea is that we're going to have three major sections. The first section, we're going to discuss, why we need a new form factor for SSDs. I mean, this change is definitely happening, but we should probably talk a little bit about what's driving that change. Second, I want to go into E1, which is over here, and E3, because I think that you should probably learn a little bit about the new form factors, especially since we're going to really start seeing a lot more servers with them, starting with the next generation in 2022. And then in the third section, what I really want to do is talk about some of the really cool use cases that this enables. And we can look at some of the ones that are already happening in hyperscale data centers today, but I also want to just show what some of the big vendors are looking at doing in the near future. So those are the three sections. But before we get too far, I just want to say that, well, we are probably going to mark this video as sponsored, but I'm going to explain exactly what's going on here. So I had this idea. I actually spoke at the OCP EDSFF workshop. And what I realized during that talk was that we probably needed to do a little bit more industry education in terms of what the new form factors are and how they're going to impact servers and why we even need them. And so that started a little process after that discussion, which is like, hey, well, how are we going to show people this? Now, there are tons of mechanical drawings, and we've actually done a piece on STH using the E1.L, which is the longer version of the E1. And we've used that to really show kind of if you can get 1 petabyte of capacity in a 1U chassis. We did a video on that last year, and we'll link that in the description. But I really wanted to go and show not just mechanical drawings and CAD drawings and stuff like that. I wanted to physically show you the products. So that started a process where I made a couple barbecue briskets and brought them over and said like, hey, Kioxia guys, I really want to go do this. Is there any way you could get me some at least mechanical samples or drives or whatever they are? I just want to be able to actually show people like physically what do these things look like and how are they different? And it took about a month and a half actually to get these, but Kioxia was actually able to get us some drives, and some of these are actually real drives, some of them are mechanical samples, but I just kind of wanted to show off what these are, and I think that it's really awesome that we were able to finally get them. So we're going to put that these are sponsored by Kioxia, but realistically they just managed to get us drives, so I just wanted to be very clear on what's going on here. And before we get too far, just kind of giving you some sense of scale in terms of how fast this transition is about to happen from the traditional form factor drives into the next generation of EDSFF drives. What I wanted to show you is this kind of research bit that I think a lot of the SSD vendors use, and it basically shows that by about 2024, 2025, we're going to start seeing something around half of the SSDs that are sold in the data center are going to be on the new either E1 or E3 based EDSFF platforms. That is an absolutely lightning pace in the industry. I mean, NVMe drives have been faster than SAS or SATA drives for, generations, for years, maybe a decade, I don't know. But the end of the day is it's taken a long time to do that transition from SAS. There's still a lot of SAS architecture out there to NVMe, right? This is an industry, the data center industry moves very slowly. So to see something that is going to completely take over and change the industry in only 2 to 3 years, I think is, something that we definitely need to talk about. And to really start talking about that, let's start with the good old M.2 drive. Now, this M.2 drive, if you have a workstation, you may have one or more M.2 drives like this in there. Also, this drive was actually kind of designed not necessarily for your workstation. It's actually designed more for the notebook market. This was an idea when you had a 2.5-inch SSD or a 2.5-inch hard drive, and that was taking up too much space in a chassis. By switching to an M.2 SSD, you can actually get a lot of space savings, and that allows you to make a smaller notebook. And so it became really popular. And then because notebooks took off in terms of their overall market share, that meant that the SSD form factor M.2 became very popular, which drove up quantities and also quality. And so therefore we started to see it in other markets like the workstation market, but one of the other big ones was the server market. Specifically M.2 drives, especially on the SATA side, the M.2 drives really kind of took over or have been taking over from SATA DOMs. And then that transition, of course, people say like, okay, well, do we really want to have SATA drives anymore? Probably not. Let's go to the M.2 form factor and do NVMe. And honestly, M.2 in the data center is actually kind of an interesting idea, right? And there's a whole thought and there were some server designs where you'd actually have a whole bunch of M.2 slots because the idea was that this is much smaller than this, so you can pack them more densely, and maybe that would be a good idea. And there are a couple definitely designs out there, but the challenge that people had was that was really pretty far from an ideal solution. The M.2 SSDs were really designed in a generation where you had, lower power and lower performance drives. You didn't necessarily have these higher performance drives like PCIe Gen 4 drives that we see today, and you actually see quite a few thermal challenges with this form factor. You typically will have some kind of cooling because you need extra cooling with an M.2 drive that's running a PCIe Gen 4 if you want a high performance drive. And so that kind of means that you kind of need that extra, you need some kind of extra cooling on this. The other big challenge with an M.2 drive is that this is not a hot swappable form factor. You have to remember that this was built really to be placed in a laptop where you're not going to ever hot swap a drive, right? It's just never going to happen. And so because of that, I think somebody explained this to me one time. I don't know if this is actually true, but the actual Goldfinger lengths are pretty much all even here. And so that actually doesn't allow you to have the right sequence of power up to be able to have a hot plug or hot swap functionality. That may not be true, but that's just what somebody told me. So for a server, that's not really ideal, right? You have these giant servers that these days cost a lot of money. And if you have to reboot them just because you have to go put in a new drive, well, that's kind of a bummer. Also, just the fact that you have to cool them, and it's a challenge to cool these, that's also kind of a big challenge, and that's something that's not great. And so that's really the reason that the industry said, hey, it's time to go and kind of come up with a better option, come up with something that's a better fit for today's server industry than the M.2 laptop drive that we're adapting to the server world. And so when we get to the next section, that's going to be the E1S. But let's talk about probably my favorite one, which is the 2.5-inch SSD. And the reason it's my favorite is because it is designed for things like hot swap. So you're going to see servers on the front of them will have typically like 24-ish bays. And so you can definitely have a lot of hot swap NVMe. And that's awesome, right? You get an absolute ton of performance. In fact, the modern SSDs that we have today in an NVMe SSD are basically in a single SSD, you're getting about the same performance as you would have gotten in an entire 24-bay SATA system of just a couple years ago. In fact, I was on the Flash Memory Summit floor showing off a 24 SATA system, and we got 1 million IOPS. That was a huge deal at the time, but now you can just buy a single SSD, an NVMe SSD that does that all in this instead of requiring an entire server. But the 2.5-inch form factor really was not designed for NVMe SSDs. Before NVMe SSDs, we had SATA SSDs, and this is actually a Toshiba, which is the precursor to Kioxia, but this is actually one of the I think they're PX02s that we used to use in the STH hosting cluster. And these are 12 gig SAS drives, and they are 12 gig SAS SSDs. But before we had SAS or SATA SSDs, we had hard drives. And so to understand where the 2.5-inch NVMe drives really came from, you kind of have to go back to the good old-fashioned hard drive and 2.5-inch form factor. Now, although we don't do these with scripts, and I'm far from the best computer historian in the world, I think that the 2.5-inch form factor dates back a long time. I think it used to be Prairie Tech in 1988 or something like that, where they said, hey, what if we made a 2.5-inch drive? We can use that 2.5-inch drive and can put them in portable things. And that really kind of helped spur the laptop generations of old. And 2.5-inch as a hard drive form factor is actually really interesting because not only did it work in the notebook case. But then also, this was something that people actually leveraged this size to do some pretty cool things with enterprise storage. Specifically because you have a smaller diameter or smaller radius, the disk speed or the rotational speed of the media, you could push up to 10,000 and 15,000 RPM without crazy power of trying to do it and thermals of trying to do it like you would have on 3.5 inch. And with faster rotation, you got lower latency, and that basically gives you more performance. And then the other really big benefit that you get by a 2.5 inch drive versus a bigger 3.5 inch drive is that you can fit them more densely into a chassis because, well, they're physically just much smaller. And by being smaller, it means that you got more spindles. So if you increase your spindle speed and have more spindles, you get a ton more performance by having 2.5 inch hard drives versus having 3.5 inch hard drives. And that is really how the 2.5 inch form factor became popular in the overall data center and server industry. And then we eventually got the SSD version of the 2.5 inch drives when we had the SAS and SATA generation. And now these days we have the 2.5 inch NVMe drive. But that really shows you the problem, right? I mean, we're using a 1988 spinning disk drive form factor for a modern NVMe SSD. I was trying to think of an analogy of like what this is like. And something about me, I just, love sports cars, and I've always loved sports cars since I've been like high school. And I've always thought that if I made it and I made $1 billion, the first thing I would do is get a lift in my garage. I know they're not that expensive, but I just, be an easier way to do oil changes and all those kind of great things that you can do if you had your own lift in your garage. And if you have one, I'm totally jealous of you, just so you know. And when I was in high school and college and stuff, it seemed like a great idea to have a lift because it would let me do my service and I could save a lot of money. And it seemed like a great idea because, well, it's using older generation tech. Now I have a Tesla, and basically you don't do any maintenance on these things. There's no oil changes or anything like that. And because of that, it kind of makes me not want to lift anymore. And that's really what's going on with these hard drives. I mean, this is your old tech combustion engine, which is still very cool, but still is your old tech combustion engine. Whereas I guess the next generation of stuff, why do you need to have that infrastructure to have a spinning disk when you're not going to use spinning disk for performance storage anymore? Okay, so let's start talking about E1, because that's kind of really the smaller form factor. And if you're wondering how they came up with the size of these, my best guess and thing I could tell you is that they basically made a drive that could fit vertically in one rack unit. So going back to that piece that we did at Supermicro last year, we looked at E1.L, and these are the longer drives. And the kind of cool thing about the longer drives is that because you have so much more space and you also have the opportunity to have more cooling, you can go and have a larger drive. So the easy way to think about E1L, and that was actually one of the first E1 platforms that kind of came out and was really adopted, E1L is really there for the kind of that higher capacity storage. And I think that's really the idea in that E1, so you could use those 1U chassis. But the challenge of E1L is just the fact that they're really long. And by being a long drive, it means that your chassis is going to be deeper because, usually you're going to have, say, a server behind that, which means that, well, you need a lot of extra space. And just because of those simple, form factor issues, E1L is always going to be kind of relegated more towards the higher capacity storage applications or 1U applications. To me, at least, the more interesting one is the E1S, which this is a 4 terabyte Kioxia XD6 model right here, which is an E1S form factor. Now, E1S has a couple of different types of form factors, and let's just kind of go through those super quickly. The big deal and the big thing that you're going to notice that's different on these is really just the ability to handle higher power, but also have better cooling to handle that higher power, I guess. And so there's kind of the standard 5.9 millimeter device, but that's really not the one that a lot of people are going to use because it's a pretty bare drive and you don't get great cooling on it. So it's kind of like today's M.2 drive. Now there is an E1S, it's an 8.01, I think, millimeter drive. And the challenge with that smaller and kind of thinner thing is it just doesn't have the same thermal dissipation and power handling capability of the larger drives. And so the basic idea here is just that this is probably not going to be used as much because I think with PCIe Gen 5, you're going to start to see higher power and higher performance. And therefore, you're going to see that people are just going to want to have better cooling. Now, let's get to the drives that I think we have. And this is the 9.5 millimeter E1S. This is a 4 terabyte model again. And this particular drive, the idea here is that it doesn't necessarily have the highest power, but if you do have enough airflow over this drive, you can get about 20 watts worth of dissipation on it or thermal dissipation on it. And that headroom allows you to get pretty high performance SSDs. But this small form factor also means that you can absolutely pack these into a system. They just frankly don't take up that much width, and so you can put a ton of them onto or into a single server. Now, slightly bigger, we have the 15mm drive, and at 15 millimeters seems like, oh, I've heard that. Where have I heard that before? It's because we were showing off the, U.2, U.3, 2.5-inch 15mm drives, and that kind of is about the same thickness. But of course, it's basically, if you can kind of see, it's basically like half of the width. And the big difference with this is just by having this extra room for cooling, it allows you to, use lower pressure. And so you don't necessarily need as much airflow because you have a little bit more surface area for cooling. And then we get to the big one. This is the 25mm E1S. Well, this is the 15, and you can see it's about another, 10 millimeters taller, which means that we get a bigger heatsink, and that gives us basically more room to have cooling. And this one should give you about 25 watts, maybe a little bit more in terms of, depending on your cooling setup, but this actually will give you, in theory, the most performance and also kind of allow you to have the most flexibility in terms of your airflow in your chassis. And if you think this is some kind of crazy exotic technology that, will never get used, it's actually already used today. Facebook uses this in its Yosemite V3 chassis. We did a video and an article last year just kind of talking about what Yosemite V3 is. It's actually a Cooper Lake platform for Facebook that really is replacing their old Xeon D Yosemite nodes from, Yosemite V1, V2. And it uses a, custom Cooper Lake processor, which is the 8321HC, I think. That's, pretty fast and custom made for Facebook. And then on top of that, or next to that, you have a whole bunch of SSDs in this Yosemite V3 chassis. The chassis itself will support configurations usually of either 48 or 36 of these drives, which is basically 4 or 6 of these SSDs per blade. So let us be clear that this is basically what Facebook was talking about deploying in 2020. And here we are talking about how this is going to take over the industry in 2022. It's just, I guess, everybody else is a little bit slower than places like Facebook. By the way, Microsoft also will use these E1 drives as well. But if you're used to basically the enterprise storage and these 2.5-inch drives, well, then you're really looking at maybe something like this, which is the E3. And specifically, this is an E3S drive. Basically, there's the E3L, which is kind of the longer variant. It's nowhere near as long as the E1L because it can be, a 2U type of form factor. But then there's also the E3S, which is the shorter version, which is a little bit shorter. And then the other side that you're going to see is that there's basically a single width and a double width. It's kind of like a trailer. I don't know if that's great, but a lot of you are going to remember that just because I said it. Now, the reason that these are exciting is actually for a couple different reasons. The first one is just the fact that you can go and put 44 of these drives side to side all the way across the 2U chassis. So your density goes from 24 to 44. And because servers are becoming more expensive, being able to put more drives per server means that you can have, fewer servers, which means you're not paying as many processors, many motherboards, all that kind of stuff, which basically means it's cheaper to attach more storage if you can get higher density. And that's just basically great if you need denser storage. But the other side to it is that because you have these different form factors, different lengths, different widths, all that, you have a pretty wide range of what types of drives and what types of devices you can support. Specifically, if you have an E3L that's a double width version, that will allow you to go up to, say, 70 watts. And once you start getting to the 70 watt range, that gives you a lot more possibilities. You could put FPGAs or AI accelerators in there. You could also put storage class memory. And because you have a common form factor, it means that you can have E.3 chassis and an E.3 infrastructure, and then put different types of drives and devices and do a little bit of mixing and matching. So for example, you could have your 24 hot swap E.3 drives or E.3S drives, and then on each side, you could have storage class memory, which you can think of kind of like 3D XPoint, or you could have something like AI accelerators. And in case you're wondering, E1 and E3 actually use the exact same connector. So if you had the right carrier, you could totally go and put an E1 drive into an E3 slot. And speaking of carriers, things get a little interesting there as well. Now, I think a lot of folks are very familiar with the idea of having a drive sled, drive caddy, or drive carrier, whatever you want to go call it, for your server drive. You take your 2.5-inch drive, you stick it in here, just like you would do with a hard drive or a SAS SSD, SATA SSD, whatever. You throw it in there and then you put it into your server, and this has the latching mechanism and retention. It also helps you do the hot swap, all that kind of stuff, right? This is kind of lines the drive and makes sure that it stays in the chassis. But with the E3 and E1 form factors, there's actually no drive sled, no drive caddy, no drive tray, any of that kind of stuff. Instead, these are designed to not use those. But that brings us to something that I think is totally kind of fun or weird. I don't know exactly how I feel about it. But so because these drives don't have a caddy, that means that they still need to be latched and secured in place. And that's why this is just totally fun. So the current spec is basically that you make a drive and then you have mounting holes for a latching mechanism, but then based on the server OEM, you can have a latching mechanism that attaches to your SSD. And this is one of those areas where I just hate to say it, but you just kind of want to go like, oh guys, you're so close to doing this well, and then you screwed it up in the last second. Because, well, why do you have to go and have a special Dell latch versus a Supermicro latch versus a Lenovo latch or an HP latch, a WeWin, Quanta, Huawei, anybody, Inspur? Why do you need your own latching mechanism? Why can't we all just say, okay, this little bit right here, we're just going to have a common latching mechanism that's going to go into a chassis? I would like to think that the reason is not due to vanity, but I think I might be wrong on that one. So in terms of E1 quirks, that is probably my favorite one. And I really hope that the overall community just says like, hey, that was a good idea to have these kind of all different latching mechanisms. Maybe we'll make them in different colors or whatever. Maybe we'll make stickers or decals that you can throw on them. But why don't we just go standardize? So that way the SSD vendors can just create something that goes into absolutely anything. And we don't need to go get custom latches because that's just silly. So with E1 and E3, we basically get better cooling, and that allows us to have more power on devices. And it also allows us to go and make denser configurations because we're not constrained to a 1988 form factor for a spinning Rust disk. But there are definitely implications well beyond just the fact that there's a new form factor. Indeed, let's go talk about some of the really cool types of things that this enables. So what these form factors are really designed for, and let's just cut through it, is not just to be, NAND SSD form factors. These are explicitly designed to enable the hot swap and hot plug functionality for different types of devices. While we're showing the E1 and E3 drives here, that's not necessarily the only thing. We can also have things like storage class memory that can go into these same form factors. In fact, Samsung already showed off that they have a CXL memory expander, and they announced it way before they're going to ship it, but we expect others will follow suit at some point as well. Aside from that, folks are definitely looking at this form factor for more than just, storage class memory expansion, and also, NAND SSDs. They're also looking at it for accelerators because you do get up to 70 watts in the larger E.3 form factor. And if you think about what that means, that basically means you could go and take a 70 watt accelerator, which is basically something like an NVIDIA T4 for inferencing, something like that kind of class, and have it be hot swappable. That means if one of those devices failed, for example, you could now have that be a service item instead of having to go around to the back of the chassis, open the chassis up, and then get inside and pull out the PCIe expansion card. That is a much preferable, I think for most people, that's going to be a very preferable way to go do things. There are also folks looking at how do you put NICs, whether those are just traditional NICs, offload NICs, or they're DPUs. We have a whole bunch on what is DPU, and also talking about the stratification of different types of NICs, including DPUs, and we're going to have a lot more DPU content in the future. But those devices do tend to use a lot of power, and because they use a lot of power, well, you could have accelerators that are not just AI accelerators or GPUs. You could also have something like a network accelerator in there. And although we've really talked about a lot of the really dense configurations, there are some other benefits too. Like for example, if you have rear boot drives or something like that, it doesn't take up actually that much room to go put two small E1S drives on the back of a chassis and have your boot drives be hot swappable. Whereas an M2 drive, right now you'd have to bring down the server, pull it out of the rack, open it up and swap that out. And so that makes actually service of those items a lot easier. And if you don't want to go have a super dense configuration, your storage takes up a lot less and you can get more drives and more density with a lot less faceplate space, which gives you basically the ability to go have more PCIe expansion slots or other types of IO on that faceplate rather than using it all for hot swap base. So overall, when you're thinking about your next generation of servers that you're going to be buying in 2022, it probably is not going to pay to think about it in the same terms that you're thinking about your servers today. The next generation of servers are going to have more PCIe lanes, and that will enable you to have more devices in a system. And the other thing is just the fact that we're going to be able to pack them more densely when we have devices like these. More CPU, PCIe lanes, CXL, and also the new E1 and E3 EDSFF form factors give us the ability to have basically new topologies and new types of servers that we never had before. Overall, I am super excited by these new drives, and you should totally be too. And if you have coworkers and you want to start talking about, hey, what are we going to do next year? Or, well, depending on when you watch this, maybe what we should do this year. But you can totally go send them this video, and this is basically a little reference guide for you. We'll also have something on the STH main site that you can see linked in the description. So if you don't want to go and watch the entire video, even though we have timestamps, you can totally go use that and bookmark that as a reference guide. Hey guys, I hope you like this video. It definitely took a lot of work to go set up. So I do want to say thank you to Kioxia for being able to get us these drives. That was absolutely awesome. So thanks to them for that, and hope you like this little series that we're doing talking about the next generation of servers. This is just another one that we're doing. We have a couple more to go, but hope you liked it. And if you did, why don't you give us a like, click subscribe, turn on those notifications so you can see whenever we come out with great new videos. As always, thanks for watching and have an awesome day.